Welcome, everyone, to Scheller Lunchtime Live, a live stream series hosted by the Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business. My name is Lindsay Kane, and I'm the Associate Director of Client Relationships for non-degree executive education programs. On select Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern, you'll have the chance to hear from Scheller faculty, student, and alumni speakers as they discuss relevant topics for the tech-driven digital age. At Scheller, we're proud to offer undergraduate, MBA, and PhD programs, along with open enrollment and custom executive education programs. It's my pleasure to introduce Rebekah Vepraskas, a Scheller executive MBA alumna, licensed professional counselor, and peak performance researcher. Rebekah is the founder of Salient Consulting, where she coaches professional athletes and CEOs to design and reach their own personal goals. While earning her MBA, Rebekah designed and led a qualitative research study with a voluntary group of Georgia Tech football players to study how goal setting leads to peak performance. Based on Rebekah's high performance research, she recently founded a new company, Athlete Metal, a high performance goal platform for elite athletes and peak performers. Today, Rebekah talks about how she took her research into peak performance with athletes and applied it to helping professionals set goals and become high performers in the workplace. She'll discuss how the philosophy of peak performance can help you survive and thrive through the unknowns, isolation, and anxiety of the pandemic and beyond. As always, feel free to ask questions in the comments section. Rebekah will address as many questions as possible at the end of her presentation. Over to you, Rebekah.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk to you guys. And I'd like to thank the Scheller College of Business for asking me to host this talk. I'm honored to be an alumni. And I think that everybody should get their MBA from the Scheller College of Business. So I am very excited to talk today as a founder, an entrepreneur, and as a peak performance researcher, and as someone who just loves to help people set and reach their own goals. So there are countless aspects of peak performance that we could discuss today. And if you said to me, "Oh, Rebekah, just tell me what works," this is what I would tell you. I would break it down to some key elements. We're going to talk about 3 today that would be the most helpful, not only in achieving your success, also in your overall happiness and satisfaction while doing so. You naturally have hardwired thinking that impedes your success, and I'll explain what I mean and provide you with 3 key skills today that will help you push through some of your natural neurological barriers. So we're going to talk about 1, adequately evaluating your story, 2, gratitude for your story, and 3, goals for your story, plus a bonus tip at the end. So the first thing I want to talk about is a crisp, cool, humid morning in June 2017 when Alex Honnold climbed El Capitan in Yosemite Valley and summited without rope or protection. Absolutely amazing. If you've seen the documentary Free Solo, you know that it's a transformative film. El Capitan is over 7,500 feet tall without a rope or protection. Honestly, was such an amazing feat, and I was a little surprised the following year in 2018 when I heard Alex Honnold be interviewed by a reporter who asked him a really interesting question. She said, "Were you depressed after you reached your goal of summiting El Capitan?" I was immediately curious about the expectation that Alex would be depressed, and also the expectation we have as humans that you're only as good as your next greatest accomplishment. Despite the fact that Honnold had an 8-year record-breaking journey, there's this assumption that the record breaker might be unhappy. Alex Honnold answered that question. He didn't miss a beat. He took a month off, he said, of climbing to reflect on what he had accomplished. And then he looked past El Capitan to the other goals that he had that he began working on. He had prepared not to be let down after he summited. And why would he possibly need to be prepared not to be let down after summiting and meeting his goal? This phenomenon is more prevalent than you might realize. But why? It starts with our brain, and we're going to discuss today how we can counterbalance our thinking and how to thrive. So, the brain is the most complex system in the known universe. It contains hundreds of billions of cells and trillions of connections. We're Georgia Tech. We know the brain's complex, right? Because of this complexity, humans have an unimaginable amount of thoughts per day. Researchers believe up to 80,000 thoughts per day. And these thoughts are conscious, subconscious, and unconscious thoughts. And yet somehow the brain is very simple, and the brain tends to spotlight only what it sees right in front of it. So the brain sees risks and negatives and scarcity. And this is known as a negativity bias, which is very helpful for humans to ascertain risk when we were cavemen or hunter gatherers. It's not as helpful for us today. It makes us develop things like anxiety and panic attacks because we're primarily noticing the negative factors in our day-to-day lives. We do not account for our experience as a whole or all the wonderful things that help make up our complete story, which is part of the reason why we might expect a record breaker like Alex Honnold to be depressed after reaching such an amazing feat, or why lottery winners might be depressed, or leaders of multi-billion-dollar software companies might be depressed. It's a really interesting concept, and it's something that we don't really talk about very often. Let's dig a little deeper. We see that our brains are anthropologically predisposed to prefer negative views. And we also see that we tend to frame our challenges with a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. We use a much more narrow framework than is necessary when it comes to our own life. We see a lot of obstacles, and we see great difficulty in seeing past those obstacles. We think in absolutes, we judge, we label, we mind read, we fortune tell, we compare, we filter out information if it doesn't fit our narrative. And many times our narrative might be to stay stuck. Roadblocks become our friends, and we explain that we just can't be successful because of this barrier or that barrier or this coworker or this culture at this company. Our brains prefer comfort, and our brains tend to avoid risk completely, even though risk and taking chances, it's how we fail, and it's also the only way we grow. If you don't waste one more day blaming your unhappiness on an external factor, that would be amazing, because we can't control things like that, a person, a situation, or a career. We'll begin to focus on things that are within our control. Today, we'll begin to focus on what's possible. This is a brain hack or a trick for your tendency to spotlight negative thoughts. Think about how you think. Think about how you frame your thoughts. When you bump into an old friend, you say, "How are you?" And invariably they might say, "Oh, really busy. I've been really busy." Or you might compliment their child and say, "Your child is really cute." And they may say, "Oh, he's into everything." We have a tendency to frame even really amazing things as negative. So the next time you hit traffic, consider a reframe. "Oh, I noticed that I'm slowing down," and accept that slowing down. We have a tendency to negatively frame anything, and instead we could accept everything with a more neutral mindset, and it keeps our thoughts from getting stuck and highlighting, instead of highlighting on the negativity that's right in front of it, that spotlighting that we have naturally in our brain. Coach Collins calls this the put the ball down mentality of, let's put behind us what just happened and let's focus on what's happening now. And if we can do that with a neutral mindset, we'll be successful. The late sports psychologist Gary Mack gives a great example. Remember a few moments ago, we referred to the brain as simple yet complex. Gary Mack talked about a golfer getting up to hit the ball and saying to himself or herself, don't hit the ball in the sand trap. 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 Where will the ball go? Into the sand trap. Why? The ball goes into the sand trap because that is where the brain is focused. And when we focus our imagery on where we want the ball to go, it could go exactly where we want it to go. So we need to consider telling our brain to relax, telling our brain, you've got this, and imagining where we want the ball to go. The brain will simply respond to the direction that you give it and the thought that you give it. So let's consider your story. How is this salient to you? So you're not Alex Honnold, and I bet your story is pretty amazing. Let's think about your story. Your story or your narrative is incredibly important, and it may be something that you hardly ever think about. So rewind with me now. Go back with me. Let's go back. You can even close your eyes. Let's go back 2 years. Where were you? How were you 2 years ago? Do you remember? Okay, so let's go back a little further. Go back 5 years. Where were you? How were you 5 years ago? Good. Now let's go back 10 years. Where were you? How were you 10 years ago? What were you doing? Where were you working? Where were you in school? Let's go back 15 years and 20 years. Where were you? How were you? Next, let's consider this. What would the you from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or 20 years ago say about you today? The former you might be pretty impressed with how things came together, maybe even a little surprised about your current reality. One thing that I've found consistent working with high performers across all categories is that even if no one knows, and it's just in the quietness of your own thoughts, because of negativity bias, you overlook today and take for granted the person that you've become today. You doubt your talent and your beliefs and the gifts about who you are. Your current opportunity somehow, even though it's amazing, feels monotonous. You try not to feel this way, but you do. And you judge yourself harshly for where you are today. And even if it's a really amazing opportunity, and even if your family's amazing and you've built this amazing life, you found a way to be harshly critical of it. If the opportunity is perfect, then you're not perfect. And somehow it feels lackluster, not quite what you'd envision. What do? A simple gratitude practice will help neutralize our tendency to focus on the negative. Because your thoughts matter. We wrongly assume that circumstances or opportunities make us happy, or that people make us happy, or that a spouse makes us happy, or that a summit of 7,500 feet would make us happy or sad. You actually make you happy. You do. And how you speak to yourself matters. Because literally anything could be captured negatively, even summiting El Capitan free solo, even when no one could have comprehended such a feat. How do you capture your current reality? And If you could be kind to yourself and not judge yourself so harshly, what would the you from the past see about your life today? What would the old you see in all of the countless things that have worked out in your favor so remarkably well? Would you choose to see the beauty of your life? So, how do we reflect on our success? How do we design what we want now? In the hundreds of hours I've spent with peak performers like you, one salient factor emerges. You've reached this amazing pinnacle of success, and your brain easily sees the deficits to this amazing pinnacle that you're on. Yet we can design what that pinnacle looks like. When you ask a peak performer, what do you want now? You know what you want now. You like to compete. You might say, as many do, oh, I'm just trying to get through this pandemic. I'm just trying to get through this season. I'm just trying to get through this particular rollout that we're going through at work. And I would ask you, do you want to just get through? Or do you want to finish strong? Oh, take a moment with me to focus not on scarcity. Let's focus on what's possible for you. But first, let's begin by noticing the good things. I'm going to recommend that you begin a daily gratitude practice. Now, I know, like many of my clients, you may think this sounds hokey and you might not believe it'll help you at all. However, if we go back to that negativity bias and the 80,000 negative thoughts that you have every day, we need to counterbalance those thoughts and begin with gratitude for today and gratitude for the tiniest details of your life. When gratitude grows, our success grows, and all of the beautiful details of your life that are working out in your favor, we need to notice them. The details you often forget. So we want to keep those details specific. Why? Because your negativity is very specific. So we want to keep our gratitude specific. So grateful for the person that called you today, grateful that you were able to call a friend, grateful that the sun's out today, grateful that it feels warm on your skin. So I recommend, and I do this myself and recommend to all my clients, that we write down 10 to 12 things that we're grateful for every day. And it helps reframe our thoughts, especially for the details that we often ignore because we're spotlighting things that are very, very, very negative. One other key that I use with all of my athletes after gratitude is goal setting. So, goals are the most powerful tool that you have, and most people don't create goals at all. And 3% of people have goals, and only 1% of people write those goals down. And what we know is the 1% of people that write their goals down achieve their goals. Goals inform your thoughts, they inform your emotions or your mood, and goals inform your behavior. So, what you do. This harkens back to the example that we gave a few minutes ago about the golfer. So, if we are focused on what we want, the brain has a target. And while your brain, like we said, is complex, it's also very simple. And it's so easy for the brain to focus on what it wants and go after it when we're not focused on the negative things that we're frustrated about. Your brain will send the ball and yourself on to the target that you're focused on most. So we need to have those goals that we can aim for. And as you design and calibrate your goals, consider making them SMART goals. So you've heard of SMART goals before. They're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Although I'm not sure that Alex Honnold's goals were any of those things. So write your goals down, and maybe they don't have to be attainable to, a modern audience. Maybe they're just what you're dreaming. When I work with peak performers, the way we design goals are long-term goals, short-term goals, and daily goals. So a long-term goal is 2 to 4 years. And so in 2 to 4 years, what do you want? And we usually list at least 3 things. So sometimes there's more. And so these are goals in every aspect of your life. And so what are you dreaming about? What do you really want? And then we look at short-term goals, and those goals are 12 to 18 months. And short-term goals are the things that you want this year, so like 2021, and then also into 2022. So what's coming up for you that you would really like to achieve? And then daily goals are the steps that you need to take daily to get there. So this is such a great target for the brain to aim for, and something that I provide to all of my peak performers, and it's life changing. So I really encourage you to be a part of that 1% and write your goals down. What do you have to lose? And it gives the brain such a great target to aim for. One thing along with goals that I work with all of my peak performers, we develop a mission statement. So this is an example of mine. Grow, let go of the outcome. So some other examples, Pete Carroll from Seattle Seahawks, his is always compete. Alex Rodriguez, when he was with the New York Yankees, his was hit the ball solid, hit the ball solid, hit the ball solid. And he also had another vision statement or mission statement, which was my batting average is 380, my batting average is 380. And he would actually write 380 everywhere, and so that his brain was focused on that, which is really interesting. And Tiger Woods has said that his vision statement or mission statement is trust your stroke. And so creating something that is a centering phrase that you could repeat to yourself to combat some of those negative thoughts and doubts and faulty beliefs that you have about yourself is really great, just to grow and be able to let go of the outcome for whatever that looks like. So I want to go back now and recap. So we are going to notice the beauty of your story. We're going to give gratitude daily for all of the sweet spots and moments that help make up your life and your story. And we want to design goals. And those are long term, 2 to 4 years, short term, 12 to 18 months, and daily goals, which are what you'll do daily to get there. And then we want to form a mission statement. So that's just a centering phrase that you can tell yourself on days or moments when you might doubt yourself. And so I wanted to provide one extra bonus tip, and you'll have to forgive me. I don't talk to any peak performers like you without mentioning this. So I want to mention this to you. So this is like point 3.5. So you may think this sounds hokey, and that's okay. It works. So I want to recommend to you a mindfulness or a meditation practice. So this could be many different things. It can be using an app like Smiling Mind is a great one. On the App Store, it's free, or the Calm app. A lot of people use that. I know the athletes at Georgia Tech do. So a mindfulness or a meditation practice it can be a lot of different things. It can be breathing. It could be a long walk. It can be swimming laps. It can be anything that you could do to notice your thoughts and sort of notice what you notice. So this is really important because it helps you calm down, and it also helps with those 80,000 primarily negative thoughts that we have each day. So it helps us build in brain breaks for all of those thoughts. And so in these more quiet moments, we can be kind to ourselves, and breathe. If you're saying to yourself, I can't meditate. I know I can't meditate. One thing that I always recommend to my clients is that you fold it into your schedule late at night, right before you go to bed, or you fold it into your schedule in the morning when you first wake up. So just checking in. You can even put your hand to your heart and take 3 deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth. And be kind to yourself. One thing that we do in our family, and I recommend this to all my clients, is if you're having trouble falling asleep, you can tell yourself to take 50 deep breaths. And 50 deep breaths will completely relax you. You won't get to 50 probably before you fall asleep. And folding a mindfulness practice or meditation practice into any part of your day is a great way to combat some of those negative thoughts and be able to focus on your whole story, which is beautiful, and be able to focus on your goals and be able to focus on gratitude, which is so important, and will help you be more successful and also achieve a sense of satisfaction while on the road to success. So for the past year, I've been developing a platform with my team based on my research with peak performers. And the name of the technology is Athlete Metal. You can go to athletemetal.com to learn more. And it's in the beta phase right now, and we are ready to launch teams. So that's been super exciting. And again, I just want to say, as an entrepreneur, and maybe not a completely traditional MBA student, as a social scientist, I want to say that to notice connections like this, it happens at Georgia Tech, and that's been such an amazing experience for me that I'm really grateful for. So now I can answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Rebekah. This is so interesting. I love the idea of coming up with a personal mission statement. I think that's fantastic. Also have some folks chiming in and sharing what they do, and I think that's really fantastic. So thank you to those who are sharing. So a couple questions. How do you suggest mindfully keeping a neutral mindset throughout your work life?
I think a neutral mindset is really great. It's a really great thing. And that goes back to being mindful. And so just noticing what you notice, even like when we talked about, I'm experiencing traffic right now. So, okay, there's traffic, and a lot of times we can go straight into seeing anything as really negative. One thing I talk to my clients about is that whether something's bad or whether something's good, everything that we experience is for our growth. And so just having a neutral mindset is a wonderful way to really attack each day, with like, everything's going to be okay, and this is the next thing that I'm experiencing. So I love a neutral mindset.
Yeah, I think it, for some people, looking so far in the future may be a challenge. So taking these baby steps is probably a great start. So let's see, how are athletes incorporating your teachings? Do you have any examples for us?
Yeah, I have some examples. So one of my athletes texted me before a practice, and he was meditating for an hour before practice at the field. And so I think that's just an amazing example. A lot of them are meditating and using their goals they just finished up exams. And so, and they've been able to, many of them, attain Dean's List through just goal setting and sort of having that target. And it's very different when we say, well, I'll see how I do, versus, having a specific goal that the brain can focus on. The outcome really changes, which is really amazing.
Thank you so much. Well, we really appreciate your time today. Our next Scheller Lunchtime Live session is Friday, May 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern. The topic is From CEOs to Football Coaches, Is Executive Pay Tied to Performance? Featuring senior lecturer in finance, Jacqueline Garner. Jacqueline will look at how top executives in the boardroom and on the football field are compensated and asks, is this too much or just enough? You can register for this event and learn more about future Scheller Lunchtime Live sessions by following the Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business on LinkedIn. A recording of this session and future sessions will be available on our LinkedIn and YouTube pages as well. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Lindsay.